A major car accident in Heilongjiang killed 5 and injured 12. China's traffic crisis spirals out of control. Mainland China's Tianlong 3 rocket exploded into a fireball. China's space ambitions crash and burn. China's industrial catastrophe: at least 4 people died in explosion and fire in Anhui chemical plant warehouse. A major car accident in Heilongjiang killed 5 and injured 12. China's traffic crisis spirals out of control. A recent major car accident on the Xi'an Expressway in Heilongjiang Province has highlighted ongoing concerns about road safety in China. According to the official report from the Communist Party of China, at least 5 people were killed and 12 injured in this incident. However, a local source suggests the toll may be higher, indicating that more fatalities occurred after injured individuals were transported to hospitals. On June 30th, police in Xi'an County, Heilongjiang issued a notice stating that the accident took place at approximately 18:58 on June 29th. A small passenger bus traveling from Tili to Xi'an was involved in a single vehicle accident at the 313-kilometer mark on the Xi'an Expressway. The incident raises questions about vehicle safety standards and enforcement. Small passenger buses typically have a capacity of 9 or fewer passengers. With 17 people aboard at the time of the accident, the vehicle appears to have been significantly overloaded, potentially contributing to the severity of the crash. Having worked in this industry for so many years, I want to share my personal feelings with you. Car accidents are more ferocious than tigers, more devastating than wars, and more catastrophic than pandemics. According to statistics from the World Health Organization, over the past 2 years, more than 200,000 people have died annually in our country due to traffic accidents. With over 200,000 lives lost each year, this means that on average every 2 minutes a life is taken due to a traffic accident in our country. This is a tragedy. Behind these numbers are vibrant lives, families, homes, and entire family lineages. If a child is lost, the family's future is reduced to nothing, with no hope left. If an elderly person is lost, it's as if a tree has lost its roots. If a middle-aged person is lost, it leads to the heart-wrenching situation of parents burying their children, children left uncared for, and spouses left without companionship. Reflecting on the loss of 200,000 lives, I have many feelings. You asked me what my feelings are. I believe that there are many ways for a life to end: war, disease, natural aging, and accidents. While we can't choose how we meet our end through war, disease, or aging, the unique thing about accidents is that through our efforts, we can change and avoid them. This accident is just one in many in China. In just 10 years, traffic accidents in China have shot up by almost 30%. We're talking about a jump from 198,000 accidents in 2013 to a whopping 256,000 in 2022. And it got even worse in 2021, with 273,000 accidents. That's like having a major accident every 2 minutes. The human cost is staggering. Every year, about 60,000 people die on China's roads. That's like wiping out a small city annually. And for every person who dies, 4 or 5 more get hurt. We're looking at 200,000 to 280,000 injuries each year. Imagine the pain and suffering this causes to families across the country. The money lost is mind-boggling too. China's losing between 104 and 145 billion yuan, roughly 14 billion to 20 billion USD every year, because of these accidents. That's money that could be used to build schools, hospitals, or improve people's lives in so many ways. Some places in China are like danger zones for drivers. Take Hubei province, for example. In 2022, they had over 30,000 accidents. That's more than 80 accidents every single day in just one province. Guangdong and Hainan aren't far behind, with about 25,000 and 23,000 accidents each. It's like these provinces are competing for the worst road safety record. The scariest part? Most of these accidents are completely avoidable. More than 80% are caused by people breaking traffic rules. It's as if millions of Chinese drivers are playing a deadly game of chance every time they get behind the wheel. Why are our traffic accident mortality and incidence rates among the highest in the world? Our traffic mortality rate is several times higher than that of developed countries. This is due not only to our driving habits and driver quality, such as frequent traffic violations and aggressive driving, but also to the current process of obtaining a driver's license, which easily produces road killers. Today's driving schools are primarily focused on ensuring you pass the test. The training follows a fixed pattern set by the instructors, such as turning at specific angles and following fixed steps to pass the exam. However, when facing real-world driving scenarios, many new drivers become confused and anxious. I recently saw a statistic showing that last year, 300,000 people obtained their driver's licenses in our country. With the widespread use of cars, getting a driver's license has become almost mandatory for everyone. Every year, around the Lunar New Year travel rush, there are numerous accidents on highways. At the end of the year, many people buy new cars, and temporary license plates are seen everywhere on the roads. In Guangdong, those who obtained their driver's licenses a few years ago might remember a training program called long-distance training, which seems to have been canceled now. I find this very unfortunate. Although it took 2 days and cost some money, it was absolutely worth it. This program provided the first real road experience. Without this long-distance training, you might not even have a chance to press the gas pedal during the entire process of getting your driver's license. Most of the time, it's just about shifting gears and releasing the clutch to let the car move slowly, rarely experiencing real road conditions. Such detached from reality driver training inevitably leads to nervousness and problems when you finally hit the road. The situation in rural areas is particularly alarming. People there are much more likely to die in an accident than in cities. Many don't even know basic road safety rules. Some drive without licenses, others drive drunk, and many overload their vehicles, like the bus in the Heilongjiang accident that was carrying almost twice as many people as it should have. When you add it all up, it's clear that China's roads are in crisis. With accidents increasing faster than the number of cars on the road, it seems like the whole system is spinning out of control. Every day, hundreds of people are killed or injured, millions of yuan are lost, and countless families are torn apart by these tragedies. The government talks about improving safety, but the numbers tell a different story. Unless something drastic changes, it looks like China's roads will continue to be deadly danger zones for years to come. It's a problem that touches every part of society, from big cities to small villages, and it's hard to see how China can progress as a nation while its people are at such risk just trying to get from one place to another. Mainland China's Tianlong-3 rocket exploded into a fireball. China's space ambitions crash and burn. On June 30th, many mainland netizens posted a video saying that at about 3 p.m., a loud noise occurred in Gongyi City, Henan Province, and an object fell from the sky and exploded when it landed. The video shows that shortly after launch, a rocket broke away. The object crossed a parabola in the air, exploded when it hit the ground, and a huge fireball rose. Subsequently, the media confirmed to relevant departments that at 3:43 p.m. on June 30th, the Tianlong-3 liquid launch vehicle developed by Tianbing Technology carried out a hot test run of the first Stage 9 machine parallel power system at the Comprehensive Test Center in Gongyi City, Henan Province. According to Chinese media reports, during the test firing, the first stage rocket ignited normally. Due to structural failure at the connection between the rocket body and the test stand, the first stage rocket detached from the launch pad. After liftoff, the computer on the rocket automatically shut down and the rocket fell to the ground. In a deep mountain 1.5 kilometers southwest of the test platform, the rocket body disintegrated after falling into the mountain. Officials said there were no casualties. But we have to look at the bigger picture. The recent rocket failure in Henan Province is just one example of how far behind China's space program really is. When we look at the numbers, it's clear that China is not just trailing, but falling dangerously behind in the space race. Let's start with launch numbers. In 2023, SpaceX alone conducted 98 successful launches. That's more than the entire Chinese space program, which only managed 67 launches. This means a single American company outperformed all of China by 31 launches. It's like China is running a race while SpaceX is zooming past in a sports car. The difference in payload capacity is even more shocking. SpaceX's Starship can carry 150 tons in its reusable form. China's best rocket, the Long March 5, can only manage 25 tons. That's like comparing a moving truck to a small car. SpaceX can move 6 times more stuff into space in a single trip. When we look at how much was actually launched into space in 2023, the gap gets even bigger. SpaceX put 1,195 tons into orbit. That's 80% of everything launched globally that year. China, on the other hand, launched less than 200 tons. SpaceX launched about 6 times more than all of China combined. The satellite situation is just as bad for China. In 2023, SpaceX launched 2,514 satellites, with 1,948 of those being Starlink satellites. China launched fewer than 100 satellites in the same year. That's a difference of over 2,400 satellites. It's like SpaceX is building a massive space network while China is still trying to figure out how to get off the ground. Money talks, and in this case, it's shouting about China's problems. SpaceX made $1.5 billion in just the first 3 months of 2023. That's probably more than all of China's space companies made in the whole year. SpaceX is valued at $175 billion, which is likely more than the entire Chinese space industry put together. Launch costs show how inefficient China's program is. A SpaceX Falcon 9 launch costs about $67 million. China's similar rocket, the Long March 5, costs over $300 million to launch. That's more than 4 times as expensive. It's like China is buying gold-plated rockets while SpaceX is getting the job done with regular ones. Reusability is another area where China is way behind. SpaceX has reused its Falcon 9 first stage over 100 times. China hasn't managed to reuse a rocket even once. Every time China launches a rocket, it's like throwing away a $300 million airplane after a single flight. The speed of progress is also telling. SpaceX developed its powerful Raptor engine in just a few years. This engine can produce over 230 tons of thrust. China's best engine, the UIF 100, took more than 10 years to develop and only produces about 120 tons of thrust. It's like China is still working on steam engines while SpaceX has moved on to jet engines. Even in sending people to space, China is falling behind. Since 2020, SpaceX has sent 38 astronauts to space, including regular people. China has only managed to send 11 of its taikonauts to their space station in the same time. SpaceX is running a space taxi service while China is still figuring out how to get a few people up there. The recent failure in Xi'an shows how dangerous China's space program can be. The rocket exploded near people's homes, breaking windows in nearby villages. This kind of thing doesn't happen with SpaceX launches. It's like China is playing with fireworks in a crowded city while SpaceX is safely launching from dedicated sites. Experts say China is 10 to 30 years behind SpaceX in space technology. But looking at these numbers, it seems like the gap is getting bigger, not smaller. China's space dreams are starting to look more like nightmares. They're not just a little behind, they're so far back they can barely see the competition. This huge gap in space technology shows bigger problems in China. They're falling behind in high-tech fields, struggling to innovate, and spending tons of money with little to show for it. If China can't catch up in space, it might be a sign that they're going to fall behind in other areas too. The situation looks pretty hopeless for China's space ambitions. Unless something drastically changes, they might never catch up to companies like SpaceX. While SpaceX is thinking about going to Mars, China is still struggling with basic launches. It's a space race where one side is stuck at the starting line, while the other is already halfway to the finish. China's industrial catastrophe: at least 4 people died in explosion and fire in Anhui chemical plant warehouse. On June 29, a warehouse explosion and fire broke out in a chemical factory in Lian County, Anhui Province, killing at least 4 people. Local villagers said they heard multiple explosions and the doors and windows of their homes were shattered. Video posted online showed that in Dingcheng Village, Banta Town, Xi'an County, a chemical factory warehouse exploded and caught fire. Multiple houses burst into flames, and the scene became a sea of flames with thick smoke billowing. Local villagers told the Beijing News that the explosion and fire occurred in a warehouse of a chemical factory, located near the Huangshan Processing Factory bus station. The villager said that his residence was less than 1 kilometer away from the incident site, and he saw multiple explosions in the chemical plant, with the second explosion being the most powerful. Xinhua News Agency, the official media of the Communist Party of China, said that the explosion and fire accident had killed 4 people. Since the CCP is accustomed to concealing the truth about major disasters, the actual number of casualties caused by this explosion remains to be investigated. The situation in China's industrial sector is reaching a critical point, with the number of accidents and deaths painting a picture of a country on the brink of collapse. Let's break down the shocking numbers to really understand how bad things have gotten. In 2023, China saw 26,478 production safety accidents. That's more than 72 accidents every single day. Imagine waking up each morning knowing that dozens of dangerous incidents will happen before you go to bed. Even worse, these accidents killed 27,138 people in just 1 year. That's about 74 deaths every day, like a small village being wiped out daily. Now, let's compare this to other countries. In 2022, China reported 26,974 work-related deaths. The United States, with about half the workforce size, had only 5,190 deaths. This means if you're working in China, you're about 10 times more likely to die on the job than if you were in America. It's like Chinese workers are going to war zones instead of workplaces. The money lost from these accidents is mind-boggling. In 2023, China lost 7.32 billion yuan, that's about 1.13 billion USD, directly from major accidents. This doesn't even count all the money lost from smaller accidents, or the long-term costs of injuries and environmental damage. It's like throwing away the entire yearly budget of a small country. Speaking of the environment, China's having a tough time there too. In 2023, they had over 1,000 environmental emergencies. More than half of these were chemical spills. These aren't just small messes, they're poisoning water that millions of people need to drink and ruining farmland that people rely on for food. The chemical industry in China seems particularly dangerous. In just 5 years, there were over 4,000 chemical accidents killing more than 1,200 people. That's like having a major chemical disaster every single day for 5 years straight. One big problem is that China's factories are old and falling apart. A study found that 37% of industrial facilities are using equipment that's too old and should have been replaced. That's more than 100,000 factories that could break down at any moment. It's like driving a car with failing brakes, an accident waiting to happen. The health impacts go beyond just accidents. The Chinese Center for Disease Control says that pollution from these industries is causing 1.5 million people to die early each year. That's like losing the entire population of a big city every single year. Despite all these problems, China isn't spending enough money to fix things. They only use 0.3% of their GDP on workplace safety. Other developed countries spend 4 times as much. It's like trying to fix a broken dam with a Band-Aid. Big disasters are happening way too often. China has a major industrial accident, one that kills more than 10 people or causes huge damage every 45 days on average. That's more than 3 times as often as in the United States. It's like China is stuck in a never-ending cycle of disasters. All these numbers show a country where danger is everywhere. Workplaces are unsafe, the environment is being poisoned, and the government seems unable or unwilling to fix the problems. It's not just about factories anymore, these issues are affecting everyone in China. The human cost is enormous. Families are losing loved ones, communities are being destroyed, and people are living in fear of the next big accident. The economic cost is also huge, with billions lost each year that could have been used to improve people's lives. If things don't change soon, China's industrial problems could bring down the entire country. The loss of life, damage to the environment, and economic drain are all adding up. It's like watching a train speeding towards a broken bridge. Unless something drastic happens to change course, the result could be catastrophic. The recent explosion in Xi'an County is just one more example in a long list of disasters. As China struggles with these ongoing safety issues, it's hard to see how they can achieve their ambitious goals in areas like space exploration or becoming a global tech leader. Instead of moving forward, China seems to be fighting just to keep from falling apart.